It's about the time that you're being embraced by your mom. Was she loving? Did she hold you a lot? Was there a lot of physical contact? Was she emotionally stable when she was breastfeeding you? Even with a bottle, did she felt loving? We either avoid being merged with people so we don't ever have to experience separation. So that's kind of like the defense. Or we want to merge all the time. And this is why we are more likely to become spiritual. Because when we connect to star beings, when we connect to spiritual masters, when we connect to gods and deities, they don't have human limits. They can be with us all the time, anywhere. They would never betray us.
Revati, hi, welcome back to this podcast episode. I am so excited to talk to you today. And when we were scheduling the appointment to record this podcast episode, you said Saturday would be a good astrological day. And I know you're an astrologer as well. We never really got into this topic. I never really asked you about it. So, why is today astrologically a good day to record?
Well, first of all, I think it's always good that we do like a recording and interview before the New Year's, not after. Because this is time that the whole collective and people are thinking about, they're looking back over the whole year and thinking about where they are and where they want to be next year. So I think it's good that we put that kind of concluding, reflecting into our conversation, especially the topic of today is about trauma, it's about Reichian psychology, and it's about spirituality. And I think it's good that we get into the vibe of, concluding the year and looking forward, at least for our recording, because I know it would take time for you to do the edits and stuff like that. But I want it energetically to be before the new year. And obviously it was going to be after Christmas anyway. And since you mentioned Christ, you wanted to talk about Christ, and I'm okay with that. So I felt that today is good. Usually I don't select a Saturday for this kind of things because Saturn is very serious. It's very structured. But I think for how scattered I am, maybe this will ground me a little bit. But also, right now, like I looked at it really quickly because today the moon is in Aries. So, Aries is like the spring, the newborn baby, everything fresh and authentic, fiery and real and honest. So I think it's a good time to do it. Like the moon, because it travels so quickly, like every 2.5 days, it moves to another sign. So I think that it felt good that we could be really us, really real. And also because even though we are in a Capricorn month already, but I looked at it, the Mercury is exact, exactly oppositing my ascendant exactly today. I was like, okay. So Victoria will be exactly oppositing me in Austria, and I'll be in Bali. So it felt good. It just felt like, because I just looked at it really quickly. I don't remember. I just looked at it really quickly. I'm like, okay, looks good. Also because when I was traveling, I gave 4 sessions to some friends and old clients about their outlook for 2026. And I had to review their entire life, and I need to talk about their relationships. And 2 of them are trying to get a divorce, but it's always a very complicated situation with kids or immigration and things like that. It was just dealing with like the realities of life, and people wanting to disregard the love aspect. They want to look at the practicalities. They want to look at what they want and what is not being delivered in their relationship and what is existence not giving them. So I felt that while that memory and that all that consultation is still very fresh, that could maybe help us with our conversations today.
Great. What is existence not giving them? Wow, I love that. That's so deep.
I know,
Yeah.
they don't even put it that way, but
Yeah.
it looks like it, you know, because when we work really hard, too hard, and we ask ourselves, why do I have to work so hard? Why does it look like everyone else is getting it, you know, easier than you know? Why is everyone else having an easier life, or why is it so much easier for another person? You know, we cannot stop comparing. Or if we're in a relationship, we're thinking, why am I the only one who's suffering? Why is the other person not responsible? Why is the other person not delivering their promises? And why are they not meeting my expectations? So, you know, we become victimized of our situations. And yeah, so I think
Yeah.
that in each of the different Reiki body types, that they are victimized differently.
Mm. Yeah, explain Reichian therapy to me a little bit. I remember our first conversation we had at Unified School of Healing. You asked me if I know Reichian therapy, and I said no because he's actually from Austria. I had no idea. So I actually only recently got into his work a little bit, downloaded a book, listened to some lectures on YouTube to prep a little bit. So yeah, tell me about it.
Well, Wilhelm Reich, he's a wonderful human being. Had a very tough life. He was Jewish, Austrian, but raised by a father who wanted him to be very German. He was forbidden to be with non-German kids. So he himself was very traumatized, and he was a student of Freud. And I mean, like you mentioned earlier, I'm a astrologer, and what I do is contemporary astrology. And contemporary astrology reference a lot to Carl Jung, like modern psychology. So we focus more on how a person becomes developed throughout their entire lifetime, and you know, we reference the planet's placement to the archetypes of mythology, but we look at it through a very kind of psychology kind of lens, rather than fortune telling, you know, telling people. Like, it's less predictive, it's more spiritual in a way, because it has that kind of psychological angle to it. So if we look at different people who contributed to psychology, um, I mean, back in Freud's time, it was still very much psychoanalysis. It was a study of people's psyche. So, in a way, in our, I guess, Ubudian spiritual terms, it will be more concerned with the mind. Um, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being concerned about the mind, but we are not just our minds, we're also our body and our emotions and also our energy. But I would say, like, essentially, at the end of the day, that we need to work on the mind, because our minds limits us the most. Because, like, our physical body, if it's not comfortable, it's going to leave the situation. It's going to change the circumstances because the body cannot bear. So it will do something about it. The body is the most practical. And emotions does limit us a little bit, because we react, and then, you know, we respond differently, or we're happy, we're driven for certain things than the other. But it's more, you know, and we also cope, and we're social beings. So emotions do limit us a little bit. More than the body, because the body cannot endure so much. And emotionally, usually people are a bit more tolerable. But the mind has a huge tolerance, you know, because it's so far away from our reality in a way. And it's so limited in so many ways. So our minds really, really limit us. So I think the psychology is important. But there are a lot of ancient techniques and ancient teachings that help us to deal with the body and help us deal with the emotions. And the most popular one nowadays in the spiritual communities is energetic. approaches. And I think that they're all interesting. We don't know why we incarnated into this body, into our families, into the cultural collective that we did. Every day we're wondering why I'm here. What do I have to do? How do I do to survive? This is not just a spiritual thing. I think everybody is dealing with it in a different way. So I think Wilhelm Reich is a very important person, like the character types that he has developed. Um, Basically, it focuses more between the age of 0 to 7, but he talks about the developmental traumas and what it does to a person. So, so originally he put people into different characters, but these are not just psychological characters. He's the first person in psychology that brought psychoanalysis or psychotherapy to the body. So he was the first person who bridged this. And but the Reichian psychology or the therapies we study now has been a lot of work from Alexander Lowen helped it to become more easy for the people to study because the original copy of Reich's book is very difficult to read. It's like super hard, super academic, and it's impossible. So he was a pioneer, and there are many people. There were many people after him that continued his work. That it became pretty much the basis of all body-oriented therapies, like somatic experiencing, breath work, um, any kind of breath work. Like when I first came to Bali, I was really surprised how little people have heard about Reichian psychology. I'm like, I thought that was the basic foundation of all the body-based therapies. Like, how come these people say they're trained by them? So I think I probably asked 20 people and maybe like one person knows. I was really shocked. Um, I don't think it's necessarily for everyone to know about it, but I think it's good for healers and therapists to know about it. Because if you understand what influences a person has received in their early development, then you would understand their patterns now much better. And also because this Reichian therapy is very much body related. Like I remember in my breathwork training for the body types, we had to dress in our like yoga or like more fitting sports clothes because we had to look at our bodies. So, we had like over 30 participants in one classroom. So, the person has to stand in front and we need to look, it's like taking these prism photos, need to like do all different angles. We look at them. So we don't just look at the shape. We look at the feeling of the person. We also look at the postures. So it's good. Like I remember in our conversations when you were still in Bali, and I could tell you were like, okay, Revati, how do you read people's energy? Sometimes it's not the energy I'm reading. I'm reading their body and their posture, and then it's a combination, and it becomes very real. And I think it's a useful skill that we see if a person's being defensive to the environment or to us or to the conversation that's happening, then we have more understanding of what's happening rather than just our mind's imagination of what is going on between me and that person or this situation in front of us. Like we read these cues because this is how we were when we were babies. We didn't understand language, but we felt mom. We felt the teacher. We felt dad. We felt even the cat. Like this is what our domesticated animals do. They read us. They smell us. They feel us, and they copy us. They're kind of like babies. They're just less threatening.
Yeah, I always say that our pets just mirror us.
Yes, very much so.
The animals just mirror humanity, how they are treated. Yeah. And so you've mentioned breath work as well. What would you say, how can breath work help a person release their traumas?
Well, I mean, breath related the techniques have been around for thousands of years because in yoga there's pranayama, and prana means air, and it's about your breathing. And hatha yoga focuses a lot on how you breathe. And I mean, there are many names now, like pulsation or conscious connected and tantric and somatic and things like that. But basically, if I can put it in a simple way, is that when people are traumatized or when they experience certain trauma, it gives them a shock, like to the body, to the system, to the emotion, to the mind. So it puts tension in their body and their consciousness and their emotions, and their body has a response to it, and it contracts. And when the body contracts, it affects your breathing. So any kind of traumatic influence will affect a person's breathing. So basically, if you learn to breathe more fully, if you train your body to breathe more fully, these body armors, as Reich has put it into different categories, will be able to open up, and perhaps certain memories, emotions, or feelings or sensations can be released. Um, if I can elaborate a little bit on that, is that for instance, the Reichian body types, the original Reichian body types use pathological names, but he didn't treat them as like pathology. Like he didn't treat them as illness. He just had to use the pathological names because there weren't better names before. So there's the schizoid type, or type, the masochist type, psychopath type, and rigid type. So they all kind of so the schizoid type, which we're going to talk a lot about, is between conception to birth, and maybe a little bit after birth. And oral type is the nurturing period when the baby is getting milk from mom. And the masochist type and the psychopath type is when it's around the time when we're starting to take food. So it's about feeding and toilet training. And then the rigid type has everything to do with sexual orientation and sexual identity because it's about our relationship with our opposite sex parent. So basically, energetically, a child starts feeling sexual around 4.5 years old. They start to understand I'm a girl and I'm a boy, not as an adult way of understanding their gender, but they start to feel that. And then that changes their energy and how they respond to things compared to the 4 years before. And that would trigger something in their parents. And if their parents had no idea how to deal with it, they would be traumatized. I'm not blaming the parents. I'm just saying, if, because our societies have so much limitation and restriction and taboo about sex, and people are just afraid. And being parents is hard. It's hard. It's not an easy job at all. So yeah. So the rigid body type has a lot to do with sexual identification and sexual orientation and your sexuality. So basically, it creates different body shapes and different personality and different coping system and how they attach and their defense mechanism, and also how, like, if I can talk energetically, it affect their sensitivity to energy and dynamics, and it affects how their heart responds to love and feelings and nourishment, and affects how they use their sexuality or how they embrace their sexuality or not, and it affects if they feel connected as one person. Like, for instance, the rigid body type, there is a cut between the heart and the sex. So usually rigid body types people they're usually very beautiful and can be charismatic, and they can be sexual beings because that's how they figured they could get the loving attention they wanted. So actually rigid body type are mostly celebrities. Most celebrities are rigid types. I'm not going to say any names because I don't want troubles to hate me. But yeah. So usually it's that. So they're sex symbols and etc. Men or women, and it, but it's very hard for them to connect their sex and sexuality to their heart. It's almost like their love life and their sexual life or being a sexual being has nothing to do with love.
Can you tell me, like, can you identify what type I am?
I feel
I'm
you
curious.
have quite a bit of schizoid tendencies because you talked about our star seed and how sensitive you are and how easily you can be overwhelmed. And sorry, I'm exposing you a little bit.
It's
So
fine.
like you get overwhelmed easily and by crowds and people, and and I think that schizoid people, they're usually anxious avoidant, but they're avoidant, not necessarily anxious, but they're avoidant. So it's almost like we have a deep longing to merge with someone or some sort of love, but we're super afraid of it. So afraid of it that every time when like it comes really close to me, I'm freaking out already and imagining things that's not there and that's not going to happen. And we're freaked out by our imagination and we push that person away or we just run. Like the other person might not even get the chance to see our anxious behaviors. We already finished the whole, 50 episodes of, I don't know, Victoria in Austria and
Okay.
Revati in Bali. It's kind of like
Right.
that.
Yeah, it's funny because I think when I was younger, I was very needy, very anxious. And then as I got older, like especially with my ex, I tended to be avoidant. But I can also say that, it was a totally different culture, a different way of bonding. It was very needy on from his end. So I pulled back. Like for the first time, I was pulling back. And well, now I'm single, so
But
yeah.
the needy part is usually oral type. Um, so 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 on the physical level, it's very hard to identify a person if they're a schizoid or not. Like if their eyes shift really quickly, like I am obviously like my eyes shift really quickly and I'm always looking at everything. That's
Yeah.
a schizoid character. And some people who had major birth trauma, you can see that they cannot look at you. But I've had like 19 years of meditation, so I can look at people, I can be present now. But I wasn't like that before. Or every now and then that I get nervous and I'm like that again. But the aura type is usually more associated with being needy in relationships or needy in general. But there's always the kind of super anti-dependent or a very dependent type. So and also, but aura type that you can identify more the physical features because aura types usually they don't gain weight even if they eat a lot, and they have long limbs. Like so basically it's believed that okay, yeah,
I
that's
don't know. Are my
so
lips long?
basically you have that feature, and I think energetically I can feel your oral type character. Like not that's not say character, I can feel the oral developmental trauma that's in your field.
Sorry,
Okay.
oral?
Like oral type, that's when you're getting breastfed, you're taking milk
Yeah.
from mom before you can take solid food. So it's about the time that you're being embraced by your mom. Was she loving? Did she hold you a lot? Was there a lot of physical contact? Was she emotionally stable when she was breastfeeding you? Even if with a bottle, did she felt loving? Did you feel protected? And was she even available to give milk? Like I was already the third child, so my mom had no milk. She had very little already, and she is a working mom and she hates kids. So obviously she didn't want to be with us. So sorry. It's so bad that I'm talking about this in public. But yeah,
But the way you
she
say
has
it,
she
that
just
she
has her
hates
limits.
kids.
Like we all do have our limits. So basically the archetype is imagine this, a baby lying in his or her cradle, crying to be held. You know, like a baby in the cradle, crying to be held, reaching out its little arm and hand, and crying, screaming, and nobody comes. So our belief, our traumatic belief, is that nobody will ever be there for me. Nobody would ever come. And the reason we developed long arms and legs like limbs is because in that time, that when our body were still growing, our muscles gave up because we were holding and no one would come. We waited, and then we went into this despair that nobody's going to come. So our muscles learned a belief of giving up. So the muscles decided to stop providing resistance to our bones. So our bones just grew with less muscle resistance. That's why our limbs are longer.
That
So
is
there's a lot
fascinating.
of research you can do on that. Yeah, but it makes
Yeah.
sense. It makes sense.
I'm gonna go a bit on a tangent here though, because from my understanding, if we want to connect this to astrology, then you can see like what did you say? You're a Pisces, I'm a Scorpio. Like you can actually see the features of a person based on what astrology sign they have, or was it the what was it? Yeah, I forgot, but yeah,
Yeah.
is that true?
Usually we can tell a little bit a person's ascendant by looking at their features and first impression, but it's a really unreliable way to do it, because astrology is a bit more complicated. Like for instance, that I don't have the typical Pisces look, because usually the people who are really Piscean, their eyes look really dreamy, and it looks like they're always almost about to fall asleep, and they kind of feel like they're very naive, like they have that feeling. And I have actually very Gemini features. Like I'm always inspecting something, I'm always curious, and so I don't really have the Pisces look, but I have more the Gemini look, which is my ascendant. But also my Gemini features is mostly my oral. Like I need to talk all the time to connect. But the only way I feel connected is only through conversation on the mental plane, because that's how I
Oh,
feel safe. Because I feel
oh.
safe only through intellectual connections. If you want to hug me, I'm like this.
Yeah, I noticed that. I'm like, Revati, your hugs are so cold. Come here. Give me a
So
hug.
I got this
Because
really
I like
funny
hugs.
observation.
Okay.
I have a lot of Latino friends. When they want to say bye, they want to hug me 4 times. I have to like take 3 deep breaths before taking that, because it's hard. But this trauma is still very much in me. This is the oral type trauma, but also
Wow.
schizoid a little bit, because it's hard for me to be in my body, and then because I never received hugs as a baby, and it's just overwhelming. It's almost like my consciousness doesn't believe that this kind of physical closeness exists. So when I become very intimate with somebody physically, I want to leave right afterwards, or I want the person to disappear, because it's too overwhelming for me. Because I'm like, what just happened? You know? But I wouldn't say all or type people are like that, because I know one of my friend, she is she was born psychic, so obviously schizoid, like for sure. People who are very psychic and not in their bodies, but they're not, like they're different definitions, because she was an athlete growing up, So you would not think that she's not in her body, but energetically you could feel it. So she was born psychic, and she looks like an aura type. You know, she eats a lot, and she's always snacking on something, always taking sugar and carbs, and she never puts on any weight, and she's super skinny, long limbs, and things like that. But she was super psychic, and I know that she's the opposite of me. Like she like energetically, and it like an energetic vampire. She's always like holding on to me, holding on to her boyfriends, holding on to sex. Like she was always like that. So we're not saying that if you have this you have major trauma from this developmental period, you are of this type, there is only one or two ways that how you will respond to situations. But usually the main issue is around certain chakra and certain issue, so you can go to the opposite poles. Like if I'm super anti-dependent, my friend will be the super dependent, but it's all based on need, which is the oral type issue. And schizoids, the issue is about separation, because it was us as babies leaving our mother's bodies, and that pain was too traumatic for us because we were so merged together. So we either avoid being merged with people so we don't ever have to experience separation. So that's kind of like the defense, or we want to merge all the time. And this is why we are more likely to become spiritual, because when we connect to star beings, when we connect to spiritual masters, when we connect to gods and deities, they don't have human limits. They can be with us all the time, anywhere. They would never betray us. You see the logic behind this? Like people like us, it's almost like we need a guru, like who is not in their body. Because if we have a guru who is still alive in the physical body, we're always worried that he or she is going to die, and then we'll have to experience the separation. So I have a master who is not in his body, and it's so helpful because I can merge with him anytime, and I don't ever have to worry about him dying because he's already gone, but he's still here. So we are more likely to be drawn to spirituality. If the schizoid people, I think Elon is a schizoid. My billionaire ex-boyfriend, who's also very smart, coder, also schizoid. So because they could actually, because they are not so directly connected to their bodies, so they could overcompensate by doing a lot of workouts or really focus on their health and supplements, but they are still not in their bodies. And they could be super smart because they don't need to be in their bodies. All their energy go up to their brain. You know, then they start sending rockets to Mars and think about how to migrate the entire human race to Mars, but get rid of the people that he doesn't like or something like that. You know, getting rid of the people. It's also separation. You know, they would be concerned about that kind of things.
Yeah. So would you say that Christ was also not in his body? Or
Um,
Buddha? And what about Buddha? And
Buddha is definitely rigid type.
okay.
Please do not be offended. I'm also a Buddhist, kind of. Whoever is listening to this podcast, and Christ is a Pisces, so I would not judge my own kind. Uh, I please, I felt that if we look at the character of Buddha, how he was, like how he taught, and the things he taught, a lot of it was about discipline, and he was very compassionate as well, but he was very structured, and he lectured a lot, where I think he wasn't traveling so much. But also if we looked at his personal life, he was a prince, not of a big area, but still a prince. So he had a very easy life as a child or even a teenager. He had all the women he could have because he was allowed. So he never had any sexual repression in any way. So it's almost like from 0 to 7 that he was able to develop without much trauma. But he was too well protected in a way. And then, he also left his wife. I think it's Yashoda. He left his wife when she was pregnant. Yeah, rigid people do that. They do jerky things. They just leave their partner when they're pregnant. No, no, that was obviously a joke. Buddha was a very amazing person. He left the humanity a lot of gifts and wisdom. But he had to give up his little family to move on to something bigger, to understand why we exist and why we reincarnate, why we come through these cycles. He wanted to understand human suffering. So he didn't want to stay in that bubble of his kingdom and his very royal life. He wanted to explore, and his wife really supported him because spirituality was important in their culture, and so he was lucky. Um, so I think it's just the way he was more structured, and he was more developed, like as a person. Like we never felt anything that, I mean, there were a lot of drama around him. With any enlightened master, there will be disciples fighting for favoritism, and people will plan to betray him and things like that. But the way he responded to things, he was rather calm, and there was not a lot of drama from his side. So usually rigid type of people, they're more emotionally stable, they're more calm, and they're more rational. It's a different kind of rationality than the schizoid type, because it's almost like the schizoid type is trying to use the mind to control situations, because they don't want to go into feelings. They don't want things to get emotional. They're controlling through information and mind, so it would not get to the feeling part. Whereas rigid type of people, they're okay. They even handle emotions really well because they're much more developed. But they could be a little bit more pushing the sexual topic away. They're more likely to become celibate because
Mm-hmm.
they want to be less distracted by their body in a way. They want their body to be functional, healthy, but so the body will carry them to do what they want. So they don't allow pleasure so much. They're more disciplined.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what about Jesus? You want to talk
I
about him a little bit?
Yeah, I think Jesus is must be a schizoid. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I relate to him more than I relate to Buddha because I'm a aura type, but th- through my training, my breathwork training, I learned that I have a lot of schizoid tendencies, and I could remember through a lot of my energy work or somatic work that I could remember around my birth or even my time still in my mom's body or some past life things I start remembering. These are more schizoid features, but I found them like much later on my discovery journey. So when I read about Jesus or even the things he did that was recorded in the Bible, like a lot of things he did was very magical, and he this divine connection, and then father and born by a virgin. Like, come on, you know, like everything about him is more schizoid, and also he was very philosophical, and there are uh, archaeologists believe that he spent some time in India and he practiced tantra with his partner, and how he was betrayed and how there was always fights around him for favoritism, much worse than how it was around Buddha. But I mean, culturally speaking, I think that maybe, I don't know, maybe Indians were more afraid of their teachers and they behave better. I have no idea. I don't know. You have to
Mm.
interview people who understand that culture better. Like I wouldn't know. But I think the fact that there was so much magic around Jesus, you know, feeding so many people with like one bread or the fish. Like there's a lot of magic around him, and the way, and also the way he expressed love is so like to all of humanity. Even though it was recorded that he showed more love to his loving, to his love partner, to his lover, but like usually when he is in this loving I share love mode, it's more like from a almost like a non-personal perspective. It's very existential. So I would say that he would be more like a schizoid character type. Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, Jesus helped me a lot in life. He's like always here. Yeah. It's how I open up the space for my clients too. Like I pray the Christian way because that's kind of where my awakening happened way earlier in life. It was actually in church, and that's where I learned spiritual discipline as well. It was, yeah, I mean, before that, when I was a kid, it was more like witchcraft and stuff like that and all these magical stuff, and then Christianity, and now it's kind of like, yeah, just open to everything, and a lot of yoga and meditation and tantra now as well. So yeah, definitely a big evolution there, yeah, on my journey.
There was maybe 6 years, 7 years of my life. I was a churchgoer, and it was actually against my upbringing because I was raised as a Buddhist, and I somehow found people who went to church, and I wanted to be friends with them, so I went to church a lot. When I was in Canada, for 4 entire years, I was going to church 4 days a week. I was singing in church choir, band. I was doing junior church gathering and senior church gathering, senior meaning high school. So I went to these days, and I went to some Sunday service. So I belonged to an Anglican church. And I remember it was a very schizoid feeling, now, if I can put a label to what I was experiencing, because I felt that there was so little love and affection in my life, and I felt so alone all the time as a teenager, or I felt really alone even as a child, but I didn't really understand why I felt so alone. So when I was at church, everybody was so loving. They were so friendly. I mean, I was in Canada, so, but Vancouver also, but everybody was so nice, and they just loved you for no reason. It was unconditional love. It was divine love. And I was just shocked at the beginning. I was like, wow, I didn't know this is possible. I didn't know that this could exist. And not just one person, like the whole crowd, the entire community. I was I was just like, wow. And it was real. And also, at times that we needed to pray, and I felt that I could feel the presence, angelic presence. I didn't know what it like. I couldn't label it angelic presence, but I felt these beings and non-earthy experience. So if I look back, I would definitely say that I was very schizoid. That's why I was so drawn to church.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's just the whole community of unconditional love. It's so healing. So
Mm.
yeah.
And they always love to share.
Yeah,
They
for me
always
it
love to
was
share.
also it was also a mental stimulation for me that I wasn't so bored mentally like I was in the real world, like at work. It was just not mentally stimulating. There was no deeper connection, and I just did not feel alive. But when I would go to church, that was when I was super engaged and I felt alive all of a sudden. And all of these people with these interesting stories. And I mean, I was also at a Pentecostal church. It was an African church. So we had the drumming, we had the singing, we had the dancing. That was the
Mm.
coolest thing ever. Like, I just, yeah. And
Amazing.
they were, I mean, they believed in magic. Oh my gosh. And
That's
where
amazing.
I came from, like, you know, in Austria, office environment, very gray, very boring. There was no magic, and I felt alien.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember. And like also like there was almost no scarcity mindset.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, not the Taiwanese churches I went to, but at least the Canadian ones. People never, they were never oriented around scarcity.
Hmm.
It just felt like love is so abundant. People always wanted to help each other. It was
Hmm.
just so friendly and so communal. And for me, especially schizoids or oral type like us, we're like, oh, please take me. And also, like, they didn't, I mean, the church in Taiwan that I went to, they were kind of very orthodox, I think, that they would say Buddha is demon and all like other religions are demons. Like they're more orthodox about it. And sorry for I don't mean to use that as a derogatory term. They were just more strict and conservative. Let's put it like that. So so it was not so inviting. So when I was in Canada and then these 4 years, my religious years, I really felt that there was no problem in life. I just felt that somebody always wanted to love me and help me and support me and be there for me. Like I remember, I have a, obsessive compulsive hygiene disorder. I got it from my mom, and I've had it like all my life. And this one time we were at church, and the kids wanted to share gum, and I was just like, "Ew!" And I was I will not do it now, but I did it. I I I participated. Like that is like the worst nightmare for any schizoid or oral people. I went against my conditioning. I went against my body and my mind's limit because there was so much love and friendliness and such an openness and relaxation. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it. You know, things like that.
Yeah.
It was almost like the impossible thing is love, but it's right there.
Mm. Wow. And what would you say? I have so many questions still, but what would you say? How can a person change their mind the best way if the mind is so impactful on a human being?
I think the first important thing is you need to become aware of your thoughts and aware of your thinking patterns and aware about your decision making process. So, self awareness and self diagnosis is of a certain importance. But you know, because I teach somatics and I teach tantra, and the body is very important because we need to become more aware of our physical reaction to the environment and to people, and just to try to understand or at least tune in and feel and take care of our physical sensations and feelings. So, I mean, some people, they might be more emotional, more physical. So, you know, so whatever you're already aware of, try to be aware, become more aware of the other aspects of you. It's almost like we are a holistic person, you know, we are a mind, body, emotion, and spirit. So, one area, if it's completely unknown to you, maybe you don't start there, but you go to a less familiar area. And then you will start to see that similar patterns and similar containers or similar restrictions than the other planes that you are more familiar with. So once you have more, you have a better view or understanding of different layers of you, then usually the one layer of you that you have absolutely no idea about be much easier. And they would usually come naturally.
Okay. Yeah, I think the mind and the body, I mean, they both impact each other a
Like
lot.
if I can put it very
Yeah.
simply, if we talk about trauma or like breath work, for instance, when I first started my journey, I started 19 years ago and I was doing a lot of classes and I hated breath work and I hated tantra because everyone was so emotional. Everyone was always feeling so much. That's kind of my childhood trauma. Everybody was always hysterical and crazy and always emotional. I just didn't understand why could people just be calm and do the right thing. Like I couldn't manage the situation, so I hated it. And what I didn't understand at the time, what I didn't understand the mental limitation was that I felt emotions are bad, feelings are bad. If I feel a lot, things will always be out of control. But I was born a sensitive person. I felt a lot. I just kind of covered them. So when I go into these group rooms and therapy groups and classrooms, everybody wanted to share. Everybody wanted to talk about how they felt. Everybody wanted to talk about their trauma. And I'm just like, what's wrong with these people? They're crazy. And I went to the Osho people and they do culty things. And that was like more extreme than the others. So I was really overwhelmed and I just wanted to be with teachers that were more normal. Like my favorite teachers were the British ones and the Swiss ones. They're very calm, very rational, even though they could be loving and meditative, but they look like the more normal people. For me, that was safe. So I couldn't understand it. And it was really hard for me to get into the body that way because it was scary. So I had to go through other means. So if I love dancing, and at that time, I didn't understand that I enjoyed dancing is because when my body was in movement, my energy would move a lot. And because I'm a sensitive being, so when I allow movement, I I was breathing a lot more, even though it's still shallow, but I was breathing a lot more. So there was more prana coming into my body. There's more energy coming into my system. My energy was moving a lot more. It was interacting a lot more with my environment. So I felt more alive. And that's why I was happy. And that's why I like dancing. So I had to start with dancing meditation because I had to invite life energy to come into me. I need to invite prana to come into me and work on my body. And slowly and gradually it started opening up things. It opened up different areas of my body. And I would say the beginning, it opened up more the pelvic area, and the most difficult part of my body was my belly and my chest. Um, these is still taking time, but still, like I was able to understand that I need to be more connected to my spine, to my center, so I feel grounded. And when energy is a lot, I can reconnect to my center and grounding. And so I learned how to use internal resources or ask for external resources that I could somehow stay more to the present moment. And it requires a little bit of mental understanding, but it also requires a little bit more acceptance to your emotional patterns, your feeling patterns, because you need to accept how you are and who you are to be able to clarify your needs, and you would then be able to clearly communicate. And I think that's what's been missing in the spiritual community when it comes to trauma work, because it's almost like all these therapists and teachers who are inexperienced, in my opinion, they're just inexperienced. So they they are just throwing out a lot of terms, like ideas and concepts, but they're not helping people to understand that you cannot. recondition people with traumatic turns, because this is a self-discovery journey. Like, for instance, when my breathwork teacher did his childhood therapy process, he went regression. So he went from age 7 back to conception. That's the way he did his course. For the Reichian body type course, he started with 0. He started with conception and went all the way to 7 years old. Every teacher can do their own thing, because it's important. They need to believe and they need to have had the experience, so they would know how to help their students identify, and also the feel would be more trusting. It'll be more real. But I feel that a lot of people, they haven't studied enough and they don't have enough experience dealing with cases, so they are just throwing concepts. It's almost like, I don't want to be who I was because I felt it was not real, or I don't like the people who were in my life. I want to change to new friends. I don't like my parents because they're mean to me. I'm traumatized by them, so I want to avoid people who are like my parents. So I just want to switch my social circle. I want to become a different person. Like, that's not how it works. You are you. All this talks about self-love and self-acceptance. How are you going to do that with all these labels? You can't. So I think that that's the big problem about the community who are dealing with trauma.
Mm,
Because in my
yeah.
tantra work, I work with so many men. Sometimes they tell me what they do in men's group. I'm just like,
Oh my God, what do they
"Hey."
do? I'm so curious. My secret, the thing I always wanted to do is I always wanted to like secretively just observe in the corner a men's circle and what they do and cry about and talk about.
I wish I could lead men's group. Like, I've had
Maybe one day.
I've had male therapists. I've had male therapists telling me that they want to do women's circle because they feel that these women need to understand and experience a healthy male presence. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. But like, I want to do men's group for a different reason, because our developmental history, women, our trauma is half mom and half dad. And men's trauma is only mom. Okay, daddy maybe 10%, 15%, you know? So it's different because we are just gonna trigger the hell out of them. But if we're loving, if we're mature, and if we are the kind of mom that they never had and wish they had, it would be so healing. This is how I succeeded in my tantra work, because a lot of male students and therapy and clients come to me, and I just really receive them energetically and emotionally, not so intellectually because for me it's hard. So, but energetically, I really receive them. I receive them exactly as they are, 100%, with zero judgment. I really just love them, and it only takes like 3 sessions or whatnot, and I could feel the amazing shift because they never had that with their mothers. And that's the root of all of their traumas. I didn't, obviously, with clients and students, I'm not romantically involved with them in any way. I'm a highly ethical person professionally. So, but still, like, energetically, and sometimes when they open up, when they trust and when they surrender, it is so beautiful to witness. And they really blossom in their energy. And sometimes I'm just like, why can't you just go, I don't know, just release and scream and shout like Ozzy Osbourne or Metallica? Why can you do that? Try it. I'm not saying you have to be like that all the time, but do you own your anger? Do you own your frustration? Do you express that? I think men experience frustration so much more than women do. They're so like fixated with their image. Like they cannot fail. We don't have the same kind of pressure. We have a different kind of pressure, but it's really something.
Yeah, I could go on and on about this topic as well. And yeah, when I have male clients and they're able to express their emotions, it's like my heart opens. Really, it's so wonderful to see them
Yeah.
blossom afterwards. Yeah. And so um you have a retreat coming up or a workshop, or what is going on
My
with you?
my breathwork teacher in his 60s, he's been teaching childhood therapy for over 35, no, I think over 25 years. But he's been trained since his 20s. So he's doing a childhood therapy retreat in Bali where I'm assisting. And I've been through the childhood therapy process 6 times.
What is that therapy? What is that called?
Childhood,
A
reliving your
childhood, a reliving
yeah,
your childhood
childhood,
therapy. Oh, okay.
reliving your childhood and reliving your childhood, but it's mostly through breath work. So every day you will have more than one breath session. And this one, the old process, he used to regress from age 7 to conception. And I just got updated that because now there's so many people who are interested in sexual energy and tantra and relationships. So he has reoriented his childhood therapy to intimacy and relating patterns. So now he has a new approach. It's called childhood legacy in the bedroom. He's so British. So so basically he would start regressing from puberty. So basically when girls first get their period, 13 years old around, and when boys ejaculate the first time. So he would start with that experience and then regress backwards to all the way to conception. I don't know how he's going to fit that in 7.5 days, but he will manage. He's a Taurus.
That is so interesting. Oh my gosh. I wish I could come and I could be in Bali now and experience that. Yeah.
I think it's
All right.
amazing because he's doing it with his wife.
Oh wow.
So like because she's doing the translation into Ukrainian and Russian. So, but I think that the fact that when you have a married couple who are both meditators and healers co-facilitating around their age, because they're like grandpa, grandma, so they've matured. It really opens up a extremely safe space. I mean, I cannot, or I, not that I cannot, I don't want to plan a retreat that's 7 days. I think the most I can do, I can handle by myself is 2 to 3 days. If I want to do a 4 days retreat, I need a co-facilitator because I just don't think I can hold that much. So I think for healers and therapists, they really need a huge database of clients and students to be able to hold everybody's history and tell them it's okay. You're here now. I'm here for you. They don't say it verbally, but you feel it. And that's when you're really going to open up and you're not going to be afraid of your trauma. You're going to let it come to the surface. You need to scream. You need to go physical. You need to run around. You need to play like a child or whatnot. So
Yeah.
that's happening at the end of January.
End of January. Okay. You have do you have like a link for that I can put in the show
I do.
notes
I do.
for anybody who is interested? Can highly recommend. Okay. Great. Otherwise, I will also link your website in the show notes. You do astrology readings and craniosacral. You help couples. And yeah, is there anything else you would like to mention about your work?
I think right now it's a good time to book sessions for, looking at 2026 for astrology. But I'm very I'm very open to work with couples because I think that I've been drawing them to me, people going through difficult marriage crisis or relationship issues, and so I wanted to help them to see themselves in the situation more than just a victim. I
Yeah.
want them to be able to see their inner strength and their resources, and also that how they can be vulnerable, not to ask for help from their partner, but to be vulnerable so their partners will start to understand them. And the power dynamics between the couple can change a little bit, so you can relate more on a human level than just husband wife or boyfriend girlfriend.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Thank you, Revati, so much.
Thank you for
And
inviting me. Pleasure.
yeah, thank you, everybody who has been listening until the end. And yeah, see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.